Deep within the heart of the wilderness lies a place where the wind carries more than just whispers. It carries secrets. The echoing canyon, a jagged scar carved into the earth, is a place of haunting beauty and chilling mystery. Its towering cliffs seem to lean closer, as if listening to the stories of those who dare to enter. The locals speak of it in hushed tones, their voices trembling with unease. They say the canyon has a voice of its own, a voice that echoes with the cries of the lost and the forgotten. And now, Detective Clara Voss, a woman known for her sharp mind and unshakable resolve, has been drawn to this enigmatic place. An anonymous letter, cryptic and unsettling, has led her here, hinting at a mystery buried deep within the canyon's shadowed depths. Strange disappearances, unexplained phenomena, and a decades-old secret that refuses to stay buried. This is the story of the echoing canyon, a story that begins with a whisper and ends with a scream. Stay with us as we unravel the chilling tale of what lies hidden in the echoes. As the wheels of Detective Clara Voss's car crunched over the gravel road, the landscape around her began to shift. The dense forests gave way to a barren expanse where jagged rocks and twisted shrubs clung stubbornly to the earth. The air grew thinner, colder, and the silence was deafening. It wasn't just the absence of sound, it was as if the canyon itself was holding its breath, waiting. The echoing canyon loomed ahead, its cliffs casting long, jagged shadows that seemed to stretch toward her like skeletal fingers. Clara couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, though there was no one in sight. The only sign of life was the occasional crow circling overhead, its call echoing unnaturally, as if the canyon were mocking her arrival. At the edge of this desolate expanse sat Shadow Hollow, a town that seemed to have been forgotten by time. Its weathered buildings leaned precariously, their paint peeling like old scars. The streets were empty, save for a few stray cats darting into alleys and the faint creak of a rusty sign swaying in the wind. Clara parked her car outside the town's only inn, a ramshackle building with a faded sign that read The Whispering Pines. As she stepped inside, the scent of aged wood and damp earth greeted her, along with the sight of Margaret Dawes, the innkeeper. Margaret's smile was warm, but her eyes, sharp and calculating, betrayed a guardedness that made Clara's instincts prickle. "You must be the detective," Margaret said, her voice smooth but laced with something unspoken. "We don't get many visitors here, not anymore." Later, Clara found herself in the dimly lit study of Arthur Benson, the town's historian. His home was a labyrinth of books, maps, and artifacts, each one seemingly older than the last. Arthur was a man of few words, his voice barely above a whisper as he spoke of the canyon's history. "People disappear here," he said, his gaze fixed on a yellowed photograph of the canyon. "They always have. Some say it's the land itself cursed, angry. Others blame the spirits of those who came before." He paused, his eyes flickering to Clara. "But you didn't come here for ghost stories, did you?" Clara shook her head, though the weight of his words lingered. As she left his study, she couldn't shake the feeling that Shadow Hollow was a town built on secrets, its foundations cracked and crumbling under the weight of its past. And somewhere, deep within the canyon, those secrets were waiting to be uncovered. As the first light of dawn crept over the canyon, Clara set out on foot, her boots crunching against the loose gravel. The air was still, the kind of stillness that made every sound feel amplified. She followed a narrow trail that wound deeper into the canyon, the towering cliffs casting long shadows that seemed to shift and sway as she moved. It wasn't long before she heard it, a faint whisper, so soft it could have been mistaken for the wind. But this was different. It carried a weight, a presence, as if the words were meant for her alone. Clara froze, her breath catching in her throat. The whisper came again, this time clearer, though the words were still indistinct. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, echoing off the canyon walls in a way that made her skin crawl. She pressed on, her senses on high alert, until she reached a narrow crevice in the rock face. Something about it drew her in, a pull she couldn't explain. As she peered inside, her flashlight caught the edge of something tucked deep within the shadows. Reaching in, her fingers brushed against something rough and brittle, an old, weathered journal. Its leather cover was cracked and faded, the pages yellowed with age. Clara carefully opened it, her heart pounding as she scanned the first few entries. The handwriting was shaky, the ink smudged in places, but the words were clear enough. They spoke of a tragedy, something that had happened decades ago. A family lost, a curse unleashed, and a warning to anyone who dared to venture too far into the canyon. The entries grew more cryptic as she flipped through the pages, filled with references to strange symbols, hidden paths, and a treasure that was said to lie at the heart of the canyon. But what caught Clara's attention most was a name that appeared again and again: Margaret Dawes, the innkeeper. Clara's mind raced as she pieced together the fragments of information. The journal hinted at a connection between the disappearances and the canyon's dark history, a thread that seemed to lead back to Shadow Hollow itself. She closed the journal, her fingers trembling slightly, and looked out at the canyon stretching before her. It was no longer just a place of natural beauty. It was a labyrinth of secrets, each one more dangerous than the last. As she made her way back to the trail, the whisper returned, louder this time, almost urgent. Clara quickened her pace, the journal clutched tightly in her hand. She knew she was onto something, something that went beyond the disappearances, beyond the legends. The canyon was alive, not with spirits or curses, but with the weight of its past. And Clara was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The wind picked up, carrying with it the faintest hint of laughter. Or was it a warning? She couldn't be sure, but one thing was certain: the echoing canyon had chosen her, and there was no turning back now. As the shadows of the canyon stretched longer, Clara found herself stepping into the heart of Shadow Hollow, a town that seemed to hold its breath under the weight of its own secrets. The air here was thick with unspoken stories, and every face she passed seemed to carry a hint of something hidden. Her first stop was Harold Murray's ranch, a sprawling property on the edge of town. Harold was a man of few words, his weathered face etched with bitterness. As Clara questioned him about the disappearances, his answers were clipped, his eyes darting away whenever the conversation turned to the canyon. He spoke of the land with a mix of reverence and resentment, as if it owed him something he could never reclaim. But beneath his gruff exterior, Clara sensed something deeper, a fear, perhaps, or a guilt he couldn't shake. Next, she sought out Isabel Knight, the enigmatic artist whose paintings of the canyon were as haunting as they were beautiful. Isabel's studio was a labyrinth of canvases, each one depicting the canyon in a different light, sometimes serene, sometimes menacing. As Clara studied the paintings, she noticed a recurring symbol hidden in the brushstrokes, one that matched the carvings she'd seen in the canyon walls. When she asked Isabel about it, the artist's demeanor shifted. Her voice grew softer, her words more deliberate, as if she were choosing each one with care. She spoke of the canyon as a muse, a place that whispered to her in ways she couldn't explain. But there was something else in her tone, a flicker of unease that suggested she knew more than she was letting on. With each conversation, Clara felt the pieces of the puzzle shifting into place. Harold's bitterness, Isabel's unease, they were threads in a larger tapestry of deception and jealousy that stretched back decades. The town's history was a patchwork of grudges and betrayals, each one tied to the canyon in ways that were only now coming to light. Clara began to piece together a timeline, tracing the disappearances back to a series of events that had unfolded years ago. There were whispers of a feud between families, a treasure hunt gone wrong, and a curse that had been unleashed in the canyon's depths. But the more she uncovered, the clearer it became that the truth was far more tangled than she had imagined. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadow hollow in a golden glow, Clara felt the weight of the town's secrets pressing down on her. The canyon's echoes seemed to follow her wherever she went, a constant reminder that the past was never truly buried. And as she prepared to delve deeper into the mystery, she couldn't shake the feeling that the town and the canyon were watching her every move. The next chapter of her investigation was about to unfold, and Clara knew that the answers she sought would come at a price. As the night deepened, Clara turned her attention to the chilling details of the recent disappearances. 3 hikers had vanished without a trace, their belongings left scattered in the canyon, as if they had simply evaporated into thin air. The first to disappear was a young woman named Emily, whose backpack was found near a cluster of jagged rocks, her water bottle still half full. Next was Mark, an experienced outdoorsman whose tent was discovered neatly pitched, his boots placed neatly by the entrance. The last was Sarah, a photographer whose camera was found abandoned on a ledge, its lens cracked and pointing toward the canyon's shadowy depths. Each disappearance was marked by the same eerie silence, as if the canyon itself had swallowed them whole. Clara retraced their steps, visiting the last known locations where the hikers had been seen. The air grew heavier with each step, the canyon's walls closing in around her like a silent witness. It was there, etched into the stone, that she found the first of the strange symbols, a series of intricate carvings that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. They were unlike anything she had ever seen, their patterns twisting and looping in ways that defied logic. As she ran her fingers over the grooves, a cold shiver ran down her spine. The symbols felt alive, as if they were watching her, waiting for her to decipher their meaning. But the carvings were only the beginning. Clara soon discovered a series of unsettling coincidences that tied the disappearances together. Each hiker had vanished on the same day of the month, exactly 1 week apart. Each had been carrying a small, seemingly insignificant item, a locket, a compass, a journal, that had been passed down through their families. And each had been drawn to the canyon by a mysterious letter, signed only with the initials E.C. The more Clara uncovered, the more she began to suspect that these were not random acts of fate. Someone or something had lured them here, and the canyon was merely the stage for a darker, more sinister game. The tension in Shadow Hollow grew palpable as Clara pieced together the timeline of events. The townspeople whispered of a curse, of a force that had awakened in the canyon's depths. But Clara knew better. This was no curse. It was a carefully orchestrated plan, one that had been set in motion long before the hikers ever set foot in the canyon. The symbols, the coincidences, the letters, they were all pieces of a puzzle, and Clara was determined to solve it. But as she delved deeper, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The canyon's echoes seemed to grow louder, their whispers more insistent, as if warning her to turn back. With the next phase of her investigation looming, Clara felt the weight of the canyon's secrets pressing down on her. The disappearances were not just a mystery, they were a message, one that pointed to a truth far more dangerous than she had imagined. And as she prepared to confront that truth, she knew that the canyon would not give up its secrets easily. The echoes of the past were closing in, and Clara would have to tread carefully if she hoped to uncover what lay hidden in the shadows. As the shadows of the canyon grew longer, Clara found herself drawn deeper into the heart of its mysteries. The townspeople of Shadow Hollow had long whispered of a legend, one that spoke of a cursed family who once called the canyon home. It was said that generations ago, the Holloway family had lived in isolation, their lives intertwined with the canyon's secrets. But their story ended in tragedy, a sudden, unexplained disappearance that left no trace of their existence, save for the echoes of their name. The legend told of a vengeful spirit, born from the Holloway's untimely demise, that now roamed the canyon's depths. It was said to lure unsuspecting travelers with whispers carried on the wind, drawing them into the labyrinth of stone and shadow, never to return. Some claimed the spirit sought revenge for the family's suffering, while others believed it was a guardian, protecting something hidden within the canyon's heart. Whatever the truth, the legend had become a part of Shadow Hollow's identity, a story passed down through generations, its details growing more ominous with each retelling. Clara couldn't ignore the parallels between the legend and the recent disappearances. The hikers had vanished under eerily similar circumstances, their fates mirroring the Holloway's mysterious end. The symbols carved into the canyon walls, the strange coincidences, the letters signed E.C. Could they all be tied to this ancient tale? Or was the legend merely a distraction, a red herring designed to lead her astray? Determined to uncover the truth, Clara sought out Arthur Benson, the reclusive historian who had spent decades studying the canyon's history. In his cluttered study, surrounded by dusty tomes and faded maps, Arthur recounted the Holloway family's story in vivid detail. He spoke of their obsession with the canyon, their belief that it held a treasure beyond imagination. But their search had come at a cost that Arthur believed had awakened something dark and restless within the canyon's depths. As Clara listened, she couldn't shake the feeling that the legend was more than just a story. The Holloway's fate, the vengeful spirit, the treasure, they all seemed to point to a truth hidden beneath layers of myth and fear. But Clara knew better than to take the legend at face value. Every story had a kernel of truth, and it was her job to find it. With the legend now a central piece of the puzzle, Clara's investigation took on a new urgency. The canyon's echoes seemed to grow louder, their whispers more insistent, as if the spirit itself was watching her every move. But Clara was no ordinary investigator. She had faced darkness before, and she knew that the key to solving this case lay not in fear, but in unraveling the threads of the past. The legend of the echoing canyon was no longer just a tale. It was a clue, one that would lead her closer to the truth, no matter how dangerous the path might be. As the night deepened and the canyon's whispers grew more insistent, Clara found herself hunched over the weathered journal in the dim light of her room. The pages, brittle with age, seemed to hold secrets that refused to reveal themselves easily. But Clara's sharp mind was relentless. She traced her fingers over the faded ink, her eyes catching on a series of seemingly random symbols scattered throughout the entries. At first glance, they appeared to be nothing more than doodles, but Clara's instincts told her otherwise. There was a pattern here, a code waiting to be cracked. Hours passed as she pieced together the fragments, her determination unwavering. Finally, the symbols began to make sense. They formed a map, a crude but unmistakable guide leading to a hidden cave deep within the canyon. The journal's author, likely a member of the Holloway family, had left behind a trail of breadcrumbs, a desperate attempt to preserve the truth. Clara's heart raced as she realized what this meant. The cave wasn't just a hiding place. It was a key to understanding the disappearances. With the first light of dawn, Clara set out, following the map's directions with precision. The canyon seemed to close in around her, its towering walls casting long shadows that danced in the morning sun. The journey was treacherous, the path littered with loose rocks and hidden crevices, but Clara pressed on. She could feel the weight of the legend pressing down on her, the echoes of the Holloway's story guiding her steps. When she finally reached the cave, its entrance was nearly invisible, concealed by a tangle of vines and boulders. Clara pushed through, her flashlight cutting through the darkness as she stepped inside. The air was cool and damp, the walls slick with moisture, and there, in the heart of the cave, she found it, a small, rusted chest tucked into a crevice. Her hands trembled as she opened it, revealing a collection of old letters, a tarnished locket, and a map marked with cryptic notes. The letters told a story of greed and betrayal. They spoke of a treasure hunt that had gone horribly wrong, of alliances broken and lives lost. The Holloways, it seemed, had been searching for something of immense value hidden within the canyon. But their quest had awakened something far darker, a force that had turned their dreams into a nightmare. The locket bore the initials E.C., the same signature that had appeared on the anonymous letter Clara had received. It was a chilling confirmation that the disappearances were tied to this forgotten chapter of the canyon's history. But as Clara sifted through the evidence, she realized the discovery only deepened the mystery. The treasure hunt had ended in tragedy, but the truth of what had happened and who was responsible remained shrouded in shadow. The journal, the letters, the locket, they were pieces of a puzzle that refused to fit together neatly. And as Clara stood in the cave, the canyon's whispers echoing around her, she knew one thing for certain. The legend of the echoing canyon was no mere tale. It was a warning, a thread connecting the past to the present, and Clara was determined to follow it to its end, no matter where it led. With the evidence in hand, Clara's investigation took on a new urgency. The cave had revealed a web of greed and betrayal, but it had also raised more questions than answers. Who had orchestrated the treasure hunt? What had they been searching for? And how did the recent disappearances fit into this tangled web? The canyon's secrets were far from uncovered, and Clara knew that the next step would bring her face to face with the truth, or the darkness that had been waiting for her all along. As the shadows of the canyon grew longer, Clara could feel the weight of unseen eyes following her every move. The discovery in the cave had stirred something, or someone, into action. Returning to her room at the inn, she found the door slightly ajar, her belongings scattered across the floor. Drawers had been yanked open, papers torn, and a suitcase overturned. It wasn't a random act of vandalism. Someone had been searching for something. Clara's heart pounded as she scanned the room, her mind racing. What were they looking for? The journal, the letters, or something else entirely. The next morning, a folded piece of paper slipped under her door caught her attention. The message was short but chilling. Leave the canyon. Some secrets are better left buried. The words sent a shiver down her spine. Whoever had sent it knew she was getting too close, but Clara wasn't the type to back down. If anything, the warning only fueled her determination. She tucked the note into her pocket, her resolve hardening. The canyon's secrets were no longer just a mystery. They were a threat. As she ventured back into Shadow Hollow, the atmosphere had shifted. The townsfolk, once wary but polite, now regarded her with open suspicion. Harold Murray, the rancher, avoided her gaze entirely, his gruff demeanor replaced by a tense silence. Isabel Knight, the artist, seemed to linger in the shadows, her piercing eyes tracking Clara's every move. Even Margaret Dawes, the innkeeper, seemed less welcoming, her usual warmth replaced by a guarded edge. It was as if the entire town had closed ranks, their secrets tightening like a noose around Clara's investigation. Strange occurrences began to escalate. Late at night, she heard footsteps outside a door, only to find the hallway empty when she checked. Her flashlight flickered and died as she explored the canyon, leaving her stranded in the dark until dawn. And then there were the whispers, faint, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable. They seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, carrying fragments of words she couldn't quite make out. The canyon itself felt alive, its echoes twisting into something menacing. Clara knew she was being watched, but by whom? The suspects were circling, their hostility growing more palpable with each passing day. Harold's ranch, once a place of quiet solitude, now felt like a fortress, his every word laced with thinly veiled threats. Isabel's paintings, once hauntingly beautiful, now seemed to mock Clara, their dark imagery a reflection of the danger closing in. And Margaret, with her cryptic smiles and evasive answers, was a puzzle Clara couldn't quite solve. Each of them had something to hide, and Clara was determined to uncover it. But the closer she got to the truth, the more dangerous the game became. One evening, as she returned to the inn, she found her room ransacked again. This time, the journal was missing. Panic surged through her as she realized the implications. Whoever had taken it knew about the map, the cave, and the treasure hunt. They were one step ahead, and Clara was running out of time. The canyon's whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if urging her to hurry. The past and present were colliding, and Clara knew the final confrontation was near. She just had to stay alive long enough to see it through. As the tension in the canyon reached its peak, Clara's determination led her back to the cave, where the echoes seemed to hum with anticipation. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the faint metallic tang of something ancient. With her flashlight cutting through the darkness, she retraced her steps, her eyes scanning every crevice and shadow. It was then that she noticed it, a faint, almost imperceptible seam in the rock wall, hidden behind a jagged outcrop. Her fingers brushed against it, and with a soft click, a hidden compartment slid open. Inside lay the final piece of the puzzle, a weathered map, its edges frayed and ink faded, and a letter sealed with wax that had long since cracked. Clara's hands trembled as she unfolded the letter, the words written in a hurried, desperate scrawl. It was from someone who had once been part of the treasure hunt, someone who had been betrayed. The letter named names, revealing a web of greed and deceit that stretched back decades. It pointed directly to one of the suspects Clara had been circling, Margaret Dawes, the innkeeper. The motive was clear. Margaret's family had been wronged during the treasure hunt, their legacy tarnished, and she had vowed to protect what remained of it at any cost. Clara's mind raced as the pieces fell into place. The disappearances, the whispers, the warnings, it all made sense now. The treasure wasn't just gold or jewels. It was a symbol of justice, of reclaiming what had been stolen. But Clara also knew that time was running out. The journal had been taken, and whoever had it was one step ahead. The canyon's whispers grew louder, more urgent, as if urging her to act before it was too late. With the map clutched tightly in her hand, Clara emerged from the cave, the weight of the truth pressing down on her. She knew what she had to do. The final confrontation was inevitable, and the canyon's secrets would no longer remain buried. But as she stepped into the fading light, a chilling thought crossed her mind. The canyon wasn't just a backdrop to this mystery. It was a player, and it had chosen its side. Clara would need every ounce of her wit and courage to outsmart not just the culprit, but the canyon itself. The echoes seemed to laugh softly in the distance, a reminder that some secrets were never meant to stay hidden. As the shadows deepened and the canyon's whispers grew more insistent, Clara made her way to the heart of the echoing canyon, where the final act of this chilling drama would unfold. The air was heavy with tension, the kind that made every breath feel like a struggle. The map in her hand was more than just a guide. It was a key to unraveling the truth, and Clara knew she had to use it wisely. Margaret Dawes stood at the edge of a jagged cliff, her silhouette stark against the fading light. The once kind innkeeper now wore an expression of cold resolve, her eyes glinting with a mix of desperation and defiance. The canyon's echoes seemed to wrap around her, amplifying her presence, as if the very rocks were conspiring to protect her. Clara stepped forward, her voice steady but firm. "It's over, Margaret. I know what you've done. And why?" Margaret's laugh was sharp, cutting through the stillness like a knife. "You think you know everything, don't you? But you don't understand what it's like to lose everything, to have your family's name dragged through the mud. This treasure, it's not just gold, it's justice. And I won't let anyone take that from me." Her words hung in the air, heavy with years of bitterness and pain. Clara's grip tightened on the map as she took another step closer. Justice doesn't come at the cost of innocent lives. Those hikers, they didn't deserve to die for your revenge. Her voice carried a quiet authority, cutting through Margaret's anger. The canyon seemed to hold its breath, the echoes fading into an eerie silence as the two women faced each other. Margaret's hand twitched towards something hidden in her coat, but Clara was faster. With a swift, calculated move, she revealed the letter from the cave, its words damning and undeniable. "This proves it, Margaret. Your family's curse. It's not the canyon's doing. It's yours. You've been chasing ghosts, and in the process, you've become one." For a moment, Margaret's resolve wavered, her eyes flickering with something like regret. But then the canyon's whispers returned, louder now, as if urging her to fight. She lunged toward Clara, but the detective was ready. Using the terrain to her advantage, Clara sidestepped, her movements precise and deliberate. The canyon's uneven ground worked against Margaret, and with a final, desperate cry, she stumbled, her balance lost. As Margaret fell to her knees, the echoes seemed to swallow her defiance, leaving only silence in their wake. Clara stood over her, the weight of the truth pressing down on both of them. "It's over," Clara repeated, her voice softer now. "The canyon's secrets are out, and so are yours." The confrontation had ended, but the canyon's presence lingered, its whispers fading into the night. Clara knew this place would always hold its mysteries, but for now, justice had been served. The echoes, once menacing, now felt like a quiet acknowledgement, a reminder that some stories, no matter how dark, must come to light. As the dust settled and the echoes of the confrontation faded, the town of Shadow Hollow began to stir with a quiet sense of relief. The truth, long buried beneath layers of fear and superstition, had finally come to light. Margaret Dawes, once a pillar of the community, now sat in silence, her secrets laid bare for all to see. The disappearances that had haunted the canyon were no longer a mystery, each one tied to her desperate quest for justice and the treasure she believed would restore her family's name. Clara stood at the edge of the canyon, the map still clutched in her hand, though its purpose had been fulfilled. The wind carried a softer whisper now, as if the canyon itself was exhaling after years of holding its breath. She looked out over the jagged cliffs and winding paths, the place that had tested her resolve and pushed her to the edge of her own understanding. The canyon's eerie allure remained, but it no longer felt menacing. Instead, it seemed to hum with a quiet acknowledgement, as if it had been waiting for someone like Clara to uncover its secrets. The townspeople, once wary and closed off, began to emerge from the shadows. Harold Murray, the bitter rancher, offered a gruff but sincere apology for his hostility. Isabel Knight, the enigmatic artist, gifted Clara a painting of the canyon, a hauntingly beautiful piece that captured its duality of danger and wonder. Even Arthur Benson, the reclusive historian, shared his gratitude, admitting that Clara's work had brought closure to a chapter of Shadow Hollow's history that had long been ignored. As Clara prepared to leave, she took one last walk through the canyon, her footsteps echoing softly against the ancient rocks. She thought about the thin line between legend and reality, how the stories we tell ourselves can shape our actions in ways we don't always understand. Margaret's obsession with the treasure, the curse, and her family's legacy had blinded her to the cost of her choices. And yet, Clara couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for the woman who had lost so much, and in her grief had lost herself as well. The canyon's echoes faded with each step Clara took, but the mystery lingered in her mind. She knew this place would always hold a piece of her, just as she had left a mark on it. The disappearances were solved, the truth revealed, but the canyon's secrets were far from exhausted. Somewhere, deep within its winding paths and hidden crevices, there were still stories waiting to be told, stories of love, loss, and the enduring power of the human spirit. As Clara drove away from Shadow Hollow, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the canyon in a golden glow. The echoes were silent now, but their memory remained, a reminder that some places are more than just landscapes. They are living, breathing entities, shaped by the lives that pass through them. And though Clara had solved the mystery, she knew the canyon would always hold its own kind of truth, waiting for the next curious soul to uncover it. The town of Shadow Hollow began to heal, its people finding solace in the knowledge that the darkness had been brought to light. And as for Clara, she carried the canyon's whispers with her, a quiet reminder that even in the most mysterious places, the truth is never truly hidden. It just waits for the right person to find it. As the final chapter of this tale unfolds, the echoing canyon stands as a testament to the mysteries that linger in the shadows of our world. Its jagged cliffs and winding paths, once filled with whispers of danger, now hum with a quiet reverence, a reminder that some truths are not meant to be uncovered lightly. Clara's journey through the canyon has revealed much, but it has also left us with questions that echo long after the story ends? What other secrets lie hidden in its depths? What stories remain untold, waiting for the right moment to surface? The canyon's allure is undeniable, a place where legend and reality intertwine in ways that challenge our understanding of the world. It is a reminder that the past is never truly buried, and the echoes of those who came before us continue to shape the present. Clara's investigation has brought closure to Shadow Hollow, but the canyon itself remains an enigma, a place where the line between truth and myth blurs with every gust of wind. Now, as we close this chapter, we invite you to share your thoughts. What do you think lies at the heart of the canyon's mysteries? Could there be more to the legend of the cursed family, or perhaps another treasure hidden in its depths? Let your imagination wander, and let us know in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this journey into the unknown, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more dark bedtime stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. As the sun sets on the echoing canyon, casting its golden glow over the ancient rocks, we leave you with this chilling thought: some places hold secrets that should never be uncovered. The canyon's whispers may fade, but its mysteries endure, a haunting reminder that the world is far stranger than we often dare to believe. Until next time, stay curious, but tread carefully, for not all mysteries are meant to be solved.